I believe Alexander Volkanovski should retire. Now, admittedly, I'm pretty late to this one, but I wanted to think on this one for a while. I wanted to see what Alexander Volkanovski was going to say after a few months after the KO. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. After seeing some of the stuff that he's posting on social media, he reminds me of GSP when he retired after fighting Michael Bisping. Like, when he really retired. I think the dog is there, but I think the dog has been fed. Let me explain. Alexander Volkanovski, when he was coming up in the sport, he was not a fan favorite by any means. In fact, I would argue he wasn't a fan favorite until very late in his career. I think he got a lot of people's respect after the third Max Holloway fight. The Brian Ortega fight was also a good one, but I think what sold a lot of people on him, sadly, was the first Islam Makhachev fight. The fact is a lot of people did not think he was going to do well, including myself. And Alexander Volkanovski arguably beat Islam Makhachev. What I mean by arguably, I'm not saying it was a robbery, but you can rule it in favor of Volk. Again, it's not a robbery, I'm just saying. And I think that was the biggest star that he ever was. But here's the problem. He was a star when he was already coming up in age. And the plan was, Islam Makhachev, after that fight, the plan was Islam Makhachev was going to have to defend the belt against a lightweight, and Alexander Volkanovski was going to have to defend the belt against a featherweight. So, that's what they did. Volkanovski defended the title against Yair Rodriguez, who became the interim champion after beating Josh Emmett. Yair Rodriguez was looking like a beast, really fun striker, still is. Low fight IQ, got submitted by Brian Ortega because he wanted to grapple with Brian Ortega. Stupid. He beats Yair Rodriguez. He completed his part of it. And Islam Makhachev was scheduled to fight Charles Oliveira in the rematch at UFC Abu Dhabi. But that fight never materialized. I know I'm treading over ground, but I just want to set the scene for you. Islam Makhachev could not fight Charles Oliveira, so Volkanovski decides to step up over Gamrot. Gamrot was supposed to fight on that card. That is when Volkanovski became like the meme of if you pull out too quickly, Volkanovski's going to come in, okay? Like, that's when that meme started. And then we all know what happened next. Volkanovski got horrifically KO'd by Islam Makhachev, head kick, TKO. Where does that leave us? Volkanovski has to defend the title against Ilia Topuria. In that time, I don't know if you guys remember this, the UFC was playing with the idea. At UFC 296 was the card, no, not 296, 297. That was the card that Strickland fought Dricus du Plessis. The card was supposed to be Volkanovski fighting Ilia Topuria on that card, but they moved it back a month, they flip-flopped the dates. What they were planning on doing is because Volkanovski got head kick KO'd. The main event of UFC 297 was going to be Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, and the co-main, I can say this with pretty high certainty, was going to be Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway for the interim belt. And I would have liked that. That is a fight I would have liked to see. I think that would have cleared up a lot of stuff in that division. I would like to see Max Holloway fight Ilia Topuria. But Volkanovski decided, nah, I'm him, and wanted the fight on UFC 297. The UFC basically said, nah, dude, we're going to have to push this back. So they push him back 1 month. Thanks, Dana. And then he fights Ilia Topuria, gets KO'd for the second time in a row. The first time was at lightweight, the second time is at featherweight, and now we're dealing with a 35-year-old Alexander Volkanovski that is coming off not one, but 2 brutal KOs. These are not to slouches. I'm not saying Volkanovski is lost. But I've said this many times, both on this channel and on the TikTok channel before I got into this. I do believe that as an MMA fighter, if you believe that you're at a point in your career where you're not going to win a belt in the foreseeable future, or you don't believe you'll ever win a belt, you need to retire from the sport, because the damage that you're going to take is not going to be worth the money that you're going to be making at this point in your career. Unless you absolutely need to make the money. But there are fighters like a Dominic Cruz and an Anthony Smith that do not need to be fighting and they have a desk job. Michael Chiesa does not need to be fighting. He has jobs outside of the UFC. If you have stuff that you can do outside of the UFC that you can make a living on, you do not need to be fighting. And Volkanovski has gotten to that point where I know he's made a large sum of money from fighting for the UFC, taking the Islam Makhachev fight. Not once, but 2 times. He made a lot of money, I guarantee you. Probably easily over $1.5 million all fights. When I mean by all fights, I mean his past 3 fights. Easily over $1.5 million. I say at this point, and this is going to sound harsh, Volkanovski, I think you need to ride off into the sunset, or I want you to fight somebody like Aljamain Sterling. Aljamain Sterling's talking about how he's potentially next up to fight Ilia Topuria. I might make a whole video on that. Pantoja believes he's next up to fight somebody like... I think Pantoja says that he wants to have a double champ fight with O'Malley now. It's getting crazy. But I think if I'm Volkanovski here, do I really want a rematch with Ilia Topuria? Do I want to take more damage? Here are your choices. You either go out on your sword with a loss against Ilia Topuria and you retire. Because I don't believe he beats Ilia. I think Ilia's just too young, too durable, too good at striking in the pocket, and I think Volkanovski's chin is starting to go. I think Volkanovski to go out on a win, have a legacy fight against Aljamain Sterling. Maybe Henry Cejudo wants to go up a weight class, fight Henry Cejudo. Don't fight Max Holloway, because the Holloway fans just want you to lose so they can put their boy over you. It doesn't matter how many times you beat him. Everybody thinks Holloway's better than Volk. Y'all are fucking crazy. But you've made enough money that you don't need to be fighting anymore, and this is almost a plea to you. If you're going to fight again, do not fight Ilia Topuria. You are not going to beat him. And fight somebody that you can end on a win on. Because if you fight again at featherweight and you lose, now we're harming your legacy. Now we're dealing with a Jose Aldo. Like, Jose Aldo went down a weight class because he was worried that his legacy at featherweight was going to be tarnished by continued losses at that division, and it was. Some people put Holloway above Jose Aldo. That's not true. I understand he beat him, but I just disagree. So I'm worried for Volkanovski's legacy at that division if he continues losing, and I think the easiest way to fix that is, 1, don't fight at all, and just go off and buy some real estate in Australia and live off of that for the rest of your life. Or 2, get one more easy fight, and dude, get into a desk job. Like, you could actually do a good desk job analyst job at the UFC. You have enough brain cells, you can do this. But that's my little rant about Alexander Volkanovski. I just want to know what you guys think. Do you think Volkanovski should retire? Do you think he should fight Ilia Topuria again? Or if not, and if you don't believe he should retire, if you don't believe he should fight Ilia, what do you believe should be the next fight for Alexander Volkanovski? I'm going to leave it on that note. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below.